Imagine, you could earn money while doing this. Or this. Or even this. Stop dreaming about earning. Earn while dreaming.
Okay, everyone. Let's get going. Welcome to today's Cake DeFi Twitter space. If you are listening in live on Twitter, welcome. If you're watching or listening to the recording, either watching the video on YouTube or wherever you're watching this, or maybe just listening to the podcast, welcome. We're doing those Twitter spaces on a weekly basis. We changed the time now to 6 p.m. Singapore time. It's just because, with a larger family, I cannot leave my wife hanging after dinner. I need to help out with the 3 kids, so I need to be back at 7 p.m. So 6 to 7, it's like my max kind of cap there. And we're always discussing crypto markets, obviously discussing what's happening in the company. And last week I sadly had this to do alone. Today we have our head of community back, Fabio. Last week I talked about the transparency report. I think a lot of focus obviously on the company Cake DeFi. Today we're going to talk a bit about markets. We're going to talk about what's happening on Ethereum, what's happening on Tornado Cash. Gonna give you a bit of some thoughts on all this. We're gonna discuss markets. We're gonna discuss where could this all go. Ethereum Merge, obviously. Michael Burry selling a lot of everything. We're gonna look at the stock market, some ideas, and taking it from there. So Fabio, glad to have you back. How is everything on your side? How is everything on the social media side of things?
Hey everybody, I'm glad to be back. I kind of have a little bit of audio feedback. Okay, now it's perfectly fine. It's still crazy periods. Not actually the price that is doing crazy things, but everything around the price. And I would say the first time that we really see crypto or crypto-related things getting in the eye of the regulator in a very special way. So we later gonna dive into Tornado Cash specifically, but this of course has a larger impact on the rest of the market, and maybe also going to talk about the general market sentiment, which I personally feel is still very bearish, even though the prices have recovered quite significantly, especially on Ethereum, also on Bitcoin. So you can see if you're following with video that most prices have recovered from Bitcoin low 17.5 to currently 24, almost 25,000, and the levels that we are approaching right now are quite important because I think around 25,500 was the first low that we got, where everybody thought, okay, the low is in, and eventually we went deeper. And if you look at social influencers, the ones I like to look at are Plan B and Benjamin Cohen, because they have a really big following, and their following is quite deep into the crypto space. And Plan B, he made a poll on the 10th of August where he asked, just for fun, will we ever see Bitcoin below 20,000 again? And 65% of the people think 20,000 will get broken to the downside again. And you get a similar picture if you look at the following of Benjamin Cohen. Most people are actually still bearish, so they think this is it's just a relief rally, which will result in lower prices down the road.
Quite interesting. I have to agree. Wait, let me just pull that up here. Here's the Plan B vote. Majority actually thinks we're going to see the 20,000 again. What do you think, Fabio? What do you think the market's doing?
So initially, like if you would have asked me a few weeks back, I was pretty bearish actually, like just because of all the liquidations, institutions, and just the toxicity that we experience in all kinds of community. So I have different Twitter accounts and I follow different bubbles, different echo chambers, because depending on what you like on Twitter, you get content that is made for you. And so like within the Bitcoin community, there's actually, I never experienced a toxicity level this high. So there are three different kinds of Bitcoin maximalists right now. So these are people, they think Bitcoin is going to succeed and hold a large majority of their assets in Bitcoin, but all of them disagree with each other. Some of them think the others are toxic. Some of them think they are pushing a wrong agenda, and the other ones think they're just completely toxic. And of course, the Ethereum merge is also heavily discussed within the Bitcoin community. I guess the least toxic community right now is the Ethereum community, because they pumped almost 100% from the lows, and they're looking forward to the merge. And but if you go into altcoin communities, it doesn't really matter which community you're going into, the toxicity level is quite high. And usually indications like a poll that says 60 to 70% of the people are bearish, and the toxicity level that is as high as it is right now usually means the bottom is already in. So from a social perspective, I kind of could imagine that the bottom is already in. But as usual, it's hard to say. And I already allocated my capital, so yeah, for me it doesn't really make a difference. I'm in this for the long run, and a larger part of my capital is already allocated.
I mean, we had discussed this a couple of times now over the last weeks, how maybe this might be interesting for, some kind of local bottom, in a sense, where at the moment we could see a bit on, maybe good times to kind of dollar cost average in. I think definitely a valid point there. I don't know if we had discussed this in a really quite quick kind of intro. I don't know if you have seen that video with Do Kwon from Coinedge, where I didn't know that he's actually in Singapore. Quite interesting. Couple of things he said in there, where he said they are like the South Korean regulator was not in touch. I don't know if that is true or not. It's the first interview basically in 3 months that he has been given, talking about how all of this kind of started coming down. Quite interesting how they combine this with all kind of promotional material. Definitely a genius kind of move, and interesting that he's in Singapore. I would have not expected that. I don't know if you've watched any of that. Don't want to give too much away, otherwise, just watch it.
I definitely need to watch it. I haven't seen it yet. Just judging from the picture, it looks like he put on some weight.
A lot of stress eating, so that's it probably. I mean, at the end, that's pretty much what kind of really escalated the entire kind of craziness here over the past couple of months. And then obviously that was kind of the consequence to all that. One thing I want to bring up, if you haven't seen that blog post already, it's actually, to me, a really important topic, which is the entire DeFi topic. It's, I think, a term that you're going to hear more and more, centralized, decentralized finance, kind of this mix of, how Cake is so different to all the other companies out there. I actually believe we're the number one DeFi player out there. What does this mean? For us, this means having all the transparency that the DeFi space shows, with this connection of a centralized platform for easy access, great user experience, customer support, having a regulated framework, but then there's no service that's like a black box. Everything is completely transparent and open. I actually still think the future in all of finance is going to be the CeDeFi. We're going to focus a lot more on this now, because we believe that it really highlights quite well what our strengths are, what our vision is, what our kind of principles is for how we structure products. The blog post came out this morning. Have a read. We're going to link it up. It's all about TradeFi versus CeFi versus DeFi, and how we're trying to pick out the best kind of things for CeDeFi, which I feel at the end, I think makes a lot of sense as a whole. If I can show you, I think this is a quite interesting graphic on where we are in certain kind of hype cycles. Obviously, cryptocurrency is quite well established. Obviously, anything that's like decentralized, blockchain as a term, smart contracts, so all this, DeFi, all this here in the top, but this entire topic of CDeFi and also CD dexes, basically, it's something I heard now more and more. I know that Binance, FTX, also Coinbase, on their backend, they're working on like these decentralized liquidity providers where the front end is a centralized platform. It's a lot about settlement. So a lot of this is going to come up, in my opinion. A lot of the larger platforms are working on this. And it always comes down to the same thing. It comes down to easy user experience on the front end, complete like transparency on the back end. I think a lot of the entire issues in the past couple of months would have not really popped up had we not seen this problem around um, transparency. I also think Strike, for example, could be seen as a CDeFi player because on the back end, they're running Lightning, which is DeFi, or complete decentralized finance, or just decentralization, if you want to call it. But then on the front end, they have a centralized user interface. So I also actually think Strike is a CDeFi player. So it's going to be quite interesting to see a bit on where we're going with this. I think that's going to be a strong focus point. It's not a topic yet that's discussed much. I think CC from Binance kind of brought this up a couple of times, how CDeFi is going to get strong. But it is a key focus point for us over the past 3 years. So just putting a stronger focus on that now.
Maybe just
please go for it.
To add one point there, because I see a lot of discussion, of course, within our community, and I follow a few, I would call them native DeFi communities, people that are technical, very on a high level, on a technical level, and that live and breathe the crypto philosophy. So hold your own keys, do everything yourself, and while I would count me as part of that community a little bit, the question that you need to ask yourself is this mindset, is this approach scalable? Would you and if you really ask yourself the question, do you think 80%, 90% of the people worldwide can dive into that space, into the DeFi space, hold their own keys, run their own nodes, and things like that? Probably, if you're really realistic, you will say, no, this is not for everybody. Especially if you're deep within the ecosystem, if you have set up your own node, if you're running your own node, if you're holding your own keys, this is not for the average Joe. You need to have a technical understanding of these things that surpasses a lot of people's technical knowledge. So and that this is the problem that DeFi has. What is the problem that CeFi has? Is practically the fractional reserve banking approach, that there is not a lot of transparency, that these institutions, they don't really have the incentives aligned. They're not representing the best interest of their customers. And where CeDeFi takes practically the best out of both worlds, it is scalable because with these Web3 applications where the user and the community is at the center, but the user interface is super easy, so you have access to both of best worlds. You have the customer support on one side, and you have the high yields and the possibilities that DeFi enables to give you. So that's just my 2 cents.
Totally. Thanks for bringing that in. I think that's absolutely key. Do you want to bring up the next topic? I think it's like a very, very key topic. We're talking about, the Tornado Cash core developer actually being put into jail. Basically, maybe quick distinction for those of you that are not that familiar with the English language. There's a difference between jail and prison. Jail is that kind of time where you go into a more lightweight kind of facility where you're waiting either for trial or where basically just a few days, maybe a few weeks, waiting for the next kind of step. Prison is then that hardcore kind of long-term facility. He's as far as I understand, he's in jail right now waiting for next steps, trial. I don't know, Fabio, if you want to You are in the Netherlands. This all happened in Amsterdam, so I don't know. You're probably going to feel a bit closer there. Maybe you want to summarize the event a bit, and then we're going to ask a few questions and kind of share a few thoughts and all that.
Yeah. So for everybody that doesn't know what Tornado Cash is, I think they launched in 2018 or so. So it's a few years old, and it is a mixing service. So for everybody that doesn't know what a mixing service is, one of the things, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or Ethereum are not really anonymous. They're pseudo-anonymous because with tools like Chainalysis and other tools, you can really, it's a public ledger. Every transaction is there forever. So the tracking capabilities of certain companies, especially if you interact on a blockchain a lot, it's actually super easy to find out who you are, especially if you are transacting in high volumes. So a mixing service is practically putting your money into a pool where other people put their money in. So you're practically taking a glass of water, you putting it into the pool, and at the other side, you go in with a glass of water and you take it out again. And I think just to put a few numbers on this, Tornado Cash mixed. So in this pool, there were approximately 7 billion US dollars worth of money. And the Dutch regulators and the American regulators, they are practically accusing Tornado Cash to be a facilitator of money laundering, and especially connected to criminal activities. And it's finger pointing. I don't have any evidence of this, but this is what the regulator is saying. They say this is connected to Lazarus hacking group in North Korea, and about $500 million of this money is connected to North Korea, and about $1 billion is connected to criminal activities. And the regulator here in the Netherlands, this is the oversight of money and money laundering. They picked up a 29-year-old developer that was involved with Tornado Cash. I don't know how this is going to proceed from here, but in my opinion, this is, of course, it worries me a bit. Because he wrote software that and other people use this software, and he is practically imprisoned or in jail for writing that software, which it's definitely something that worries me, and we don't really know how this will end, but it's definitely something the whole space is following very, very closely right now.
What are the kind of arguments pro and con? What's the argument that the prosecutor is making from what we know from the media, and what's the argument that the community is kind of pushing back with?
Yeah, so the regulator, of course, says, hey, you made a tool, or you were facilitating money laundering with Tornado Cash. So you are a facilitator, or you build infrastructure that gives the people an opportunity to launder money. And if you listen more on the cryptocurrency side, it is practically, hey, just because I build a tool and somebody else is using the tool, I haven't done anything illegal. So it's the code is speech, what people talk about a lot. But so maybe to put this out of money terms, if I build a hammer and somebody else is using the hammer to do something bad with it, do I, as a hammer builder, get in jail? I don't really get the connection. Of course, it is a little bit different, but if something bad would come out of this trial and this Tornado Cash developer actually would spend time in jail and gets judged for what he built, that would worry me a lot, because there is a lot of other people that build similar tools, and if this is how they are going to treat this and how they are going to push down on the space by jailing individual developers, that would worry me a lot. So I really, really hope that this was, I don't know, maybe an honest mistake, or that nothing will result out of this. So I'm more, of course, on the crypto people's side, but this is a very basic overview. What's your take on this whole situation?
Yeah, actually, I want to do something. I mean, first of all, I also want to say I hope that actually that prosecution is going to fail and it's going to be a very honest mistake. So I want to be very clear on this. Because I also worry a bit about the consequences. I mean, we see this a bit now. People are now calling in for delay on the Ethereum merge because they call this may cause some issues. Then the price on Ethereum took a little bit of a kind of dip because people are just not 100% sure, especially also with Maker and what are the secondary consequences there, right? So it was kind of like all over the place. And now and so people are saying, this is stalling the rally. You open to take the sides. You pick one side. Let's say we're the lawyers, right? So I mean, obviously, none of us are lawyers. We have no freaking clue about the law. We can just make the argument, right? You open and like it's all about like I think it's a good question, right? So I always think one of the most fundamental questions when I took playing chess, I never took playing chess all too serious, but for the short periods of times when I actually had like a chess coach and I worked with someone to really like work on chess. What happened was when I was working with him, he would let me play my game, and then suddenly at some point he stopped the game and he just said, "Okay, which side in the game would you take right now? If you could pick black or white, which side would you take right now?" Right? And so he kind of did this several times along the way, and it was just interesting. It was a super interesting approach because that simple question changed the entire thinking of the game, right? For at least for me, and it gave me so much lessons to learn down the line because we always think on our side of things, right? And so we're part of the crypto community, so we always think from our side in the crypto community. As soon as you start thinking from the prosecutor side, you start thinking steps ahead because you now go and think, okay, if I have to think this from the prosecutor side of point of view, how would I approach that topic? What would be my attack angles? What would be my allegations? Right? So now I can sit there and be like, okay, the prosecutor is trying to do this, and now I can go and start preparing. Now, obviously, the prosecutor is going to see the same thing, and they're going to think, yeah, these guys are going to start preparing. Let me think another step ahead. And so, the further down the line, the more time. That's why time in chess is always super critical, right? The more time I have, and the more analysis I can do, the better of a strategist I become. And obviously, the more I understand about the subject, the better my argumentation is. And so I thought this was always so interesting for me. And that was like such a big breakthrough for me in chess. And I think like just in chess, that probably pushed me from, I don't know, being like a 1600 ELO player to like easily to an 1900. Just that simple example of like stop, take the other side. Or which side would you take, right? And I think so few people ask themselves this. And so imagine right now you're the lawyer, and you could if you lose the case, nothing really happens. If you win the case, imagine you get $1 million. Which side would you pick right now? And it's an honest question. Like Fabio, if I would throw this at you, which of those two sides would you pick and why?
Wow, yeah, super difficult. Of course, my emotions and I'm super aligned with all the cryptocurrency space, and I really hope that that we are going to get out of this with just a scratch. The issue is, and if you go back a few years, Bitcoiners or early crypto cypherpunks, they were warning about this. They said eventually they will come after the developers. They will come after promoters. They will come after everybody. And for this reason, you have so many people in the crypto space that tried to stay anonymous, developers or Twitter accounts and so on. If I would put myself in the shoes of a prosecutor or just a regulator or a government, the issue, of course, that and these are not my thoughts or how I feel or think, it's this is hypothetical. Of course, the issue that I see is money laundering is illegal. You're not allowed to launder money. And there are tools that facilitate money laundering. And even if you compare this to other areas, so for example, I run a Telegram community with 17,000 people in it on a cake channel. It's our responsibility as a company and for me as a community manager to moderate this chat, because if somebody, for example, would share, I don't know, child pornography in our groups, we could be we are facilitating this and helping in the distribution of this material, even though we are not sharing it. And it's a similar thing if you're facilitating the infrastructure, the tool, and the code of a software that helps to facilitate criminality or money laundering. In this case, of course, the prosecutors will come, and this is where decentralization really comes into play. And sometimes I had a few good discussion: is the decentralization 1 or 0, or is it a spectrum? And an argument that can be made here, it's sometimes it's a 1 and a 0, because if the prosecutor or the regulator attacks a system that is not fully decentralized, and there is somebody, a developer, a software, an infrastructure, something they can take down, then the whole system fails and it's not decentralized. So in this case, this is one of the early test cases how these things hold up. And but where me as a prosecutor, it's probably also in my interest, if I would be a prosecutor, to establish how do you call it? Sorry, an example, to make an example out of this, maybe to get some fear going of other people that are contributing or facilitating infrastructure in that area. So it's very worrisome to me what is happening right now, and especially that they are going after individuals, because probably they cannot go top down, so they try to go bottom up.
I mean, in this case, again, if you'd ask me, pick a side, which one would you play? For me, it is actually a very easy one. I would easily pick the prosecutor side. And I actually shared this on Twitter as well. I obviously don't know all the details, and I'm definitely not a lawyer. But if you just ask this counter question, for example, why are they not putting Vitalik in jail? Because Vitalik is Ethereum. Why do they not? Why do they go after the Tornado Cash developer, right? And that's where I think a lot of the examples that people on social media make are a bit questionable. Again, I want to be very clear here. I really hope that he actually gets out and wins that case. Just from everything that I hear and see, the situation is so different, right? And so it's like it's you playing chess here, and you are in this miserable position, and you try to kind of find this example of where someone else came out of this position with like sheer luck and sheer, I don't know, the opponent making a mistake. But factually speaking, like it, to me, that's a really, really, really straightforward case and what the prosecutor has to make. And this is super sad to say here, but I also hope, and this is actually my bigger fear. My bigger fear is not that specific case, because I think that case for the prosecutor could be very easy. And I'm going to share a bit of my thoughts. And I spoke to actually now 2 legal friends who also analyzed this and also told me the same thing. For them, this is actually a very easy case. But the very scary thing becomes when they can actually use that as an exemplary case and start stretching the implications further down, and it starts becoming a wider net. And that's where it gets really dangerous. So let me first give you a couple of the thoughts. All these stories that I see on social media where people are like, so if that guy goes to prison, why does someone like that's running a telecom company or an internet company or an email company, or why does Vitalik not have these same kind of challenges when their platforms may be abused or used for illegitimate behavior? And I think without a doubt, we can all agree that it's very likely that Tornado Cash was used to a certain extent for illegal behavior. And we even know that because the Tornado Cash team even advertised proactively for that, right? So it was very, very clear messaging on that. So the difference is, and this is also the hammer example that you made, Fabio, it's intent matters, right? It even matters so clearly that there's a difference between murder and manslaughter, and the difference is massive, right? So or it can even be an accident with extreme damages. It can even be self-defense. So the outcome is the same. The outcome could be a person is dead. In self-defense, it actually means nothing happens. In an accident that's unintentional with with the cause of with death as being a result, could have some punishment. Manslaughter, even more severe. Murder, very, very clear, severest. So the same outcome can have completely different consequences. So the same is the case here. It's a difference on whether you intend to produce a hammer with a very clear marketing that this is about slashing people to pieces and killing people and hurting people, or whether 99.99999% of the people who buy that hammer are people who just try to put a nail into the wall, and yes, a super tiny amount are going to use this as a murder weapon. It's the same on whether you are Vitalik, who says, look, we want to do everything on Ethereum, and actually we want to intend all those legal use cases. And sure, just like on the internet, we're going to have this small percentage of illegal use cases. We cannot avoid those. And it's the same on email. It's the same on any kind of internet company. It's the same on any kind of telecommunication company. What people that are part of that cypherpunk movement do not want to accept is that there's a humongous difference between what's your intent and what is not your intent. And the intent on Tornado Cash may have been a very legitimate one. And I think the intent of having privacy is absolutely essential, and I would defend that intent. But now comes the big step. And that's where, in my opinion, the prosecutor is going to have a very easy case, right? Because I would sit here as the lawyer for Tornado Cash, and I would say, listen, guys, it's all about having privacy, and privacy is an absolute fundamental right. And I think we would all agree to that. But now comes the counter side to that. Did you not intentionally actually help and even advertise that people should wash their funds when they steal it somewhere? Didn't you actively go and actually post those social media posts and kind of made fun of all that, and kind of made fun of North Korea actually being able to wash the funds and so on? Wasn't it that you actually even pushed this down? And now this is where, from a prosecutor standpoint, I think this becomes very easy as a lawyer, because now you pick up those pieces. Because it's the same thing as if you go and, sure, you could say this is virtue signaling, and maybe to a certain extent this is. If you go out as a telecommunication company, is it one thing to say, hey, you know what? On our internet, you can actually send child pornography around. Is this like, I think there's a huge difference whether you go or you say, you know what? We're going to try our best to stop any kind of child pornography. Whether at the end you can do it or not, I think big difference, but intent matters. It matters clearly in the law, and we all know as humans that intent matters. There's a difference between self-defense, where you kill someone, or whether this is murder and you kill someone. We know this. We know this. And so even though the result is the same, we inherently know this. And it's the same there. And so this is going to be, to me, a very easy case for the prosecutor. Now, but it gets a step further now. And where, to me, it gets even easier as a prosecutor lawyer is that there was a financial incentive tied to using that service. And so, yes, there's a DAO in front, but it's very, very clear that I'm going to now connect the points. Again, I'm just playing chess here, right? So you now need to sit here and be like, okay, that's what the other lawyer is going to play. So you need to understand how you're going to defend yourself. But at some point, the defense is just super, super, super difficult, in my opinion, in that specific case. And the defense, and now I'm going to start playing and say, you even advertised all those illegal use cases because you were a greedy, money-driven person. Whether this is true or not, I have no freaking clue. I don't know. I don't even know that person, right? But that's just my case. And I can tie this in by showing your marketing, showing your messaging, showing the illegal use cases, plus you being incentivized from all those transactions. Now, whether this is correct or not, I actually would love for him not to be prosecuted. Again, this is you looking at the chessboard and me giving you a choice. Do you want to be black or white? Do you want to be this side's lawyer or this side's lawyer? And to me, this is a very, very easy one, which lawyer I would love to be in, right? And now comes the dangerous part though, right? And this is now where it becomes really important. Nothing of that, nothing is about code being free speech. Nothing. I haven't even touched that part. I haven't. I didn't even talk about you being an engineer. I'm talking about the messaging you're doing, what did you try to do to avoid certain things? I'm talking about the financial incentives you had. And the dangerous part now is if this gets tied in with code being free speech and suddenly code not being free speech anymore, because also free speech is actually, I mean, we don't have free speech. You cannot just go and you cannot write racial slurs. You cannot write hate threat. So your boundary of free speech ends where someone else's boundary starts, right? So if you are a libertarian, there's this philosophy, your fist must end where the other person's nose starts, right? So you cannot just hit someone in the nose, even though you basically are libertarian. It's kind of this philosophy. So it's the same with free speech, and it's the same with code. So the dangerous part here that I am actually worried about, right, is this case may be so easy to win for the prosecutor that they're gonna extend the parts of what they try to get drawn into, that following cases or ensuing cases actually take in that free speech is code is free speech part, where then it gets dangerous for any engineer. And that is why at the moment, I think engineers who just submit open source code, there's no like direction, there's no intent, it's just pure open source code. They don't benefit from it. It's the same as on Ethereum. I mean, Vitalik doesn't benefit whether Ethereum is used for something illegal or for something legal. There's no change there, right? Vitalik never went out and said, oh, please use Ethereum for money laundering. He never did that, right? So but suddenly now it could be spun this way, because now suddenly a court in the US goes and says, hey, there's this case in Amsterdam where this engineer simply wrote code, and this code was abused for something illegal, and there the court won, the prosecutor won, so let's do the same thing now in the US. And that is where I'm getting a bit scared, because of that case being maybe almost like a ball in front of the goal line, and all the prosecutor has to do is pushing that ball over. And that is where I really hope that Tornado Cash is putting up some serious lawyers, because obviously now let's flip this the other way, right? Let's play chess here. We can defend against all these things, right? So what I need to do, and that's the key part, right? That's what good, I mean, I hope they're going to get some really good lawyers. And that's what really good lawyers do. And that's what really good decision makers do, right? That's what you do when you think about strategy. That's when you are a CEO of a company. That's what you sit down with and you kind of think about all these things through. So let's play chess here. If you know that's very likely what the prosecutor is going to do, I need to establish the exact opposite of that. I need to establish all the times where I actually highlighted how Tornado Cash was used for super legitimate, important examples. I'm actually going to get all these examples of Vitalik posting that he used Tornado Cash to send money to Ukraine to not have any kind of pushback. And so I'm going to build a lot of these anecdotes, and I'm going to get thousands of them, right? I'm going to put them all together. And I'm going to be like, hey, look, I understand, dear judge, like, my client here had some really, really stupid comments, but you know how crypto is. My client is still very young. He's inexperienced. That's the crypto ecosystem, right? It's wild. I mean, it's the YOLO ecosystem. It is the Wall Street's bet ecosystem. Let me show you some examples what these guys write on Reddit and the kind of slurs that they're using. That's the ecosystem, right? That's how you are accepted in that space. That's how you actually attract kind of the clientele and the kind of people. Yes, our client is very sorry, and I'm going to try to establish all the points when the developer tried to put in things in place. And I'm going to find those things, right? Good lawyers are going to find those things. So I'm going to try to find all those things where the engineering team or the team actually did this. I'm even going to highlight how the DAO was set up for no direct personal incentive. I'm going to highlight how code is free speech, right? I'm going to focus on all these things. And so that's what I need to do, right? And a good lawyer is going to do this. So what I need to hope here is from an external party that just looks at that and obviously doesn't have a legal background. I want to be very clear. I just look at this from a very strategic point of view, that I need to kind of hope that the lawyers from Tornado Cash actually are really, really good lawyers. They kind of think this through. And I hope the prosecutor takes this way to certain, because that's also in any chess position, right? The position can move with one wrong move, and it can be the same there. So that's just what you have to hope here. And there's a chance, and I really think there's a chance, That doesn't mean that I wouldn't want to be on the other side, because I feel the other side has a lot easier position to play here. But if you're putting me and you're making me play that position, I need to play it. I need to play it with the best chances possible. I need to calculate the steps ahead, and I need to think about those things, and I need to prepare. And so it's definitely not a done deal, but to me the sides are really clear. If I look at this and you look at the eval bar, I mean, the eval bar would go to one side directly, but that doesn't mean that one side cannot always make a mistake. So the biggest fear I have are kind of consequences out of all this for the greater ecosystem, that courts in the future are just going to use that and just drop all this stuff about intent and about benefiting, and just turn it down and say, hey, this guy got put into jail and then later into prison for writing code that was misused later on. And that's the only kind of stuff that's going to stick at the end, even though that's probably the thing he's not going to get accused of. I think that's the part that's maybe going to be put in a very small side note, and that's not even going to be touched. He's going to be prosecuted for all the other things. So that's a bit of my worry, and that's a bit of my analysis here, or a bit of my thoughts. I don't know if you have anything to add here, Fabio, if you have seen anything on social or some other thoughts on all that.
The thing that I probably couldn't voice, and that also doesn't come forward in a lot of discussions on social media, is precisely the thing that you said, that intent matters. Like, I think this is the best point that you made, and that I heard in the whole discussion since last week when this started. It's the intent that matters. Yeah, and other than that, I don't really have anything to add. What the thing that I'm wondering, of course, is how will this impact the upcoming merge? Because a lot of people say this will delay the merge. I don't really see why and how, but there is definitely a big discussion going. Maybe you have a few insights there on why this could affect the merge. I think the block is set. We have through the 15th or 16th of September, the block is about to hit. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just pull this up. I mean, the block is set as highlighted here. It's the middle of September. I think a couple of reasons why people are a bit scared now. It all has to do, on the one hand, with stablecoins. It has to do with, obviously, consequences on what does this mean for code being free speech or being prosecuted for code. Obviously, a lot of people agree that maybe Ethereum moving into a proof of stake environment could make Ethereum more likely to be a security, especially in the US. What is this going to mean for some of the engineers there? What does this mean for some Ethereum engineers if they work on that and that's a security? So I think that's just where a lot of fear is coming from. Again, I'm by no means a security lawyer. I'm definitely no security expert on that. Most of that to me seems a bit more on FUD from other communities who just try to scare a bit the Ethereum community. I hope that Ethereum is not deterred from that and just stays undeterred, focused, keeps going forward. I really hope that's going to be their kind of game plan on all this. Obviously, financial transparency here. We do hold ETH in the Cake DeFi treasury, and I do hold ETH personally. ETH is one of the coins beside DeFi chain that I kept buying over the past couple of weeks. So obviously, I have financial incentives here. I want to be completely transparent. The company has financial incentives. I am always talking. I am obviously talking my own book here. So, but yeah, I hope this kind of happens. Yeah, I don't know if you see anything different there. Yeah.
In general, the thing. So I follow the Bitcoin community very closely, and there is the main discussion between a few people within the Ethereum ecosystem and within the Bitcoin ecosystem is that practically Ethereum people. So you have a small subset of people within the Bitcoin community, like I would call them the Toxi, Moxie, plebs, carnivores, like all the way deep into the Bitcoin ecosystem. And they're practically calling out this tornado case situation, and they say, haha, I told you so. This is going to happen, and this was always like we told you this a few years ago, now it is here. And then you have this camp within Ethereum that says, hey, how can you say that this is a good thing? What do you think is going to happen if they are done with Tornado Cash? They're going to come after Bitcoin core developers as well. And so that there is this big debate back and forth. You have a lot of Bitcoiners, of course, siding with the Tornado Cash developers that say, hey, this is an absolute no-go, and this should by no means be okay that this guy is prosecuted for writing code. But it definitely splits opinions and minds. And the main issue that I see is this hits at a time when the frustration and the emotions of the broader crypto community is at an absolute low point. There's so much toxicity on Twitter, especially because, let's be honest, not a lot of us sold. The prices are down, and always when the prices are down like they are right now, between 60 and 80%, you start to question your own strategy. Even like if I would have asked people a year ago, or let's say in October or in November, what's your time horizon? What's your likelihood that this whole thing is going to succeed? Everybody says, yeah, my time horizon is 5 years and I'm going to hold this forever and no problem. And the conviction was high, and you kind of feel yourself confirmed because the prices were high as well. So now 6, 7, 8 months later, the prices are not that high anymore, and the time horizon suddenly changed. People don't really have that high time horizon. They're thinking about selling. They're not quite 100% sure if we're going to recover out of this. And this affects, like everybody always says, if I talk to people in the community on Telegram, everybody says, yeah, I'm not emotional. This doesn't affect me. But it does. It affects me as well. Like my girlfriend asked me about my work. She doesn't ask a lot, but sometimes she does. And she said, like, I can really feel that you have more stress and more frustration related to your work. And I kind of thought about it 10 minutes before I went to sleep. And I have to say, yeah, it is true, because if you are participating in a community chat on Telegram, or if you are on Twitter a lot, people are so direct, so unfriendly, so frustrated, so emotional with everything they do. And if you go back in October, we were giving each other the hands and clapping ourselves on our shoulders and hyping everything, and everything was fantastic, and we're going to take over the world. And now 6 months later, it is practically us against. We even fight each other. We are practically calling out. So our community is calling out other communities, and other communities is calling out ours, and Bitcoin against Ethereum. Even within Bitcoin itself, you have like people that hold 80% Bitcoin that are calling out other Bitcoiners just because they have other opinions than theirs. It's crazy to me, but yeah, that's I guess welcome to the bear market.
Yeah, I see this myself. I mean, I don't know. It's like, it feels like the third time. It feels different this time. I don't know if it feels different because I'm quite nonchalant and I look at it from the outside, and I'm like really so incredible to see that frustration, and then I'm like, I know maybe this frustration is worse that people show in 2018, or maybe it was just in 2018 I experienced it differently. Um, yeah, interesting. I mean, let's pull up something that I feel is quite interesting to show on the stock market. The volatility index, the VIX, is actually under April again, and it's actually close to at the beginning of the year. So we are pretty much like scaredness. We are, yeah, I think people show some hope, right? They are like, this is like, yeah, now we're gonna see this rally, like this is it. If you look at stocks, we have bounced significantly. We're actually back up 50% from the entire drop. So we recovered 50% of the entire drop. A lot of people now are shouting, obviously, this is the entire kind of bear market rally that we have seen over and over and over and over again. Yeah, we've seen this in obviously .com times. We have seen this in the financial markets, right, where we constantly have these 50% rallies. People are very, very, very cautious about this. While we see a lot of retail at the moment actually loading up on stocks and getting bullish, and we saw meme stocks, right? A lot of those typical meme stocks completely rally. We do have someone, in this case, Michael Burry, who for some unexplained reason actually blocked me on Twitter. I think he blocked me on Twitter. I think someone once pointed out what I said to him. I can't remember. I really can't remember what I said about him, why he blocked me. I have no clue. But he blocked me. So it must be a legitimate reason, I'm sure. Probably just because I'm a crypto fan or a Bitcoin fan or whatever. But Burry, who, for those of you that don't know, is the person from Cyan Capital who was actually the very first one to set up these credit default swaps in 2007. Or I think he set them up in 2006, but then he greatly benefited from them with the downfall of the financial markets in 2008. The entire movie is built around that, and so it's been obviously quite interesting to see that. And he dumped his entire kind of portfolio, and all he bought is some prison stock. I don't know what your thoughts around this are. By the way, the movie's called The Big Short. I can't remember if I mentioned that or not. But in The Big Short, he is presented by Christian Bale. Fantastic performance by him. Quite interesting. So obviously he doesn't buy that rally at all. He actually is super cautious. I don't know, Fabio, what are your thoughts?
I love that movie. First of all, if you haven't seen it, you need to see this movie. It's really it's an all-time great movie. I probably watched it 5 or 6 times. It's very well made, and it really sums up how this whole thing in the financial crisis in 2008 happened. But kind of a interesting position because there is actually somebody, Michael Burry, that made a lot of money in a financial crisis. So he has very controversial opinions on things, and his Twitter handle, I think, is Cassandra, which is like a Greek god of I don't know, destruction or chaos or something negative. The Cassandra, yeah. I think a prophecy, some kind of bad prophecy was made by Cassandra, but don't ask me about Greek mythology. So my struggle, and this is my personal interpretation, is if we don't. So I could foresee that we are actually going lower. So a lot of people are talking about 16,000, 12,000 Bitcoin price, and also that the recession is going to play out, and that we are going to see a lot lower prices. The thing that I struggle with and to comprehend in my own mind is, if this is going to happen, if we're actually going to go lower, I think the time span for us to do that is getting smaller and smaller, because there is a few things to look at, and these are, for example, the yield curve inversion, the midterms, the strategy of the Fed, that the pivot is on the horizon. Arthur Hayes has a great article on that, actually 2 articles where he's touching on that. And a lot of people are actually that are calling for lower lows. I think their time is running out. If we are going to go lower, in my mind at least, this needs to be happening before the beginning of November, because then we are going into the midterms, and the inflation has probably peaked. We don't really know, but we got the first screening that is a little bit lower than the one before. So there is an argument to be made that inflation peaked, which is the Fed's most important mandate. But it's hard to say where we go from here. But if you're a bear, your time horizon is getting smaller and smaller.
One thing I just want to point out, Fabio, I think you brought this up a month ago or something. I think the original tweet was made by Judy Wertheimer, which is that Max Payne looks like not going down to 10,000 from here. Max Payne looks like going up to 40, dropping down to whatever, 12 or something, or 10 or 15, or I can't remember what he said, then going up to 50, and then dropping all the way down to 10,000. So I just want to highlight that. I made a Twitter post about this as well. My Twitter post was independent of that, where I said I actually do think we're going to see a solid green second half of this year, and I actually still believe that. I would be cautious at the moment about 2023. So I am actually part of that group, Fabio, who thinks we're going to see a bullish rest of the year, but I'm quite cautious about afterwards. Couple of reasons. Some are politically motivated in that I think the midterms, generally the reigning party is going to want a solid kind of performance, and so I think they're not gonna want to shake the tree too much at the moment. So that's they're gonna keep the news cycle relatively calm, and the other part is just housing, it's real estate, and that's a big question mark for me. And so yeah, let's see. That's a bit of my kind of fears and all that. But as a whole, I'm staying. Otherwise, I mean, I wouldn't be rebalancing at the moment my personal portfolio. We're also going to announce, I mentioned this last week, we're going to announce soon the portfolio that you can track publicly on these stocks that we are putting our crypto treasury in, $15 million. So you can track that publicly if you want. And you can then see what kind of assets we're buying, how is this portfolio doing. Yeah, obviously we wouldn't do that if we didn't believe in certain prices going up. So yeah. Just be cautious if you now go and bet the house or bet the farm on these assets. I think we're still in a time where it's key to focus on not being wrong and not trying to be right. I think it's very dangerous at the moment. I think very unpredictable. Yeah, that's a bit on everything. I don't know, Fabio, if there's anything from your side that we need to share. I think we went through all the points that we had written up at the beginning that we want to cover. Yeah, it's good to have you back at least. I thought last week was quite boring. At some point at the end, I was like stuck, and I was like, man, now Fabio would come in with some conspiracy theory from the social media world and would bring up a really valid super point, and I was missing that totally.
Maybe a funny side note for the last time. So I was traveling actually by train while the Twitter space was going on, and gladly here in the Netherlands we have an exceptional telecommunications network because I was spending a whole hour in the train while and hosting the Twitter space, and I was praying at certain moments that I'm not losing the connection, because I don't even know what would happen if I would have lost the connection, if the Twitter space just closes down or whatever. But yeah, it kind of worked out in the end. Very happy about that. Also, I'm going to excuse myself for the next two times, Julian. I don't know how we're going to do the next 2 weeks because I'm going to be on vacation the first time this year, the only time. And so it's either going to be you, maybe you can bring in somebody else to join you, or we can skip one. We still need to decide on that. And then maybe we can also bring up, there is a few things. So of course, we read what is happening on social media and on Telegram on a regular basis. And we know what you guys are looking for. And you might think there is nothing happening in the background, but there's actually a lot that is happening. And I'm referring to the reward dashboard. It's still coming back. I said that a lot, but it's actually happening. And while this is happening, a lot of other things are happening as well. So you will start to see within the next few days that that you will probably, very likely, start to receive pretty nice push notifications on your mobile phone if you're using that. If you don't use it, please download it. And we have a few other things planned over the next 3, 4, 5 weeks that are pretty exciting, and maybe we can have a deep dive into the things that are coming up in the early September Twitter Spaces. Yeah, and other than that, yeah, that's it from my side actually.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to see about next week. If there's stuff to talk about, then I'll definitely take the hour. If it's just to do it, then I don't think that's worth your time, like the listeners or viewers' time or my time. But obviously, if there's something happening, then I'm super happy to share that. Yeah, with that, if you're on live here on the Twitter space, then thanks so much for tuning in. Subscribe on Twitter. If you're following or watching the recording here, then yeah, thanks so much. Hopefully, you give us a thumbs up. You subscribe wherever you're watching this, and follow us or listening on the podcast. And then, yeah, see you next time. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.